if your sense of bebop is really grounded in horn players like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Fats Navarro, it can be pretty challenging to hear how Horace Silver's playing on Horace Silver Trio is as bebop as Dizzy Gillespie, let's say. But there are a few things that are pretty easy to listen for, that are rhythmic and don't require a lot of music theory knowledge. That all exists too. If you analyze what Horace Silver's playing and how he's playing it, it's easy to find lots of bebop connections. But on a more superficial level where you don't need to do as deep a dive, there's one particular move that you can listen for here, which I think will help it be grounded in bebop. And that's the specific rhythm that's being played. So in most of this music, and jazz in general, is going to be what's called 4 beats per measure. So you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. So sometimes songs are in 3, you got take 5, which is in 5, but the vast majority are in 4. The actual number of beats isn't super important here as how the number of notes you play as a soloist compared to the number of beats in a measure is. So if we're in 4, which this album is basically a lot of songs in 4, if the chords are changing based on 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That in bebop, to play most convincingly in the idiom, most of your lines are going to be twice that fast. So instead of playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, which would sound nice, we're going to play twice as fast. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So these are called eighth notes because there's 8 of them in a measure if there's 4 beats in a measure. So we have, So playing eighth notes, and specifically what's called swung eighth notes, and I don't play piano, so I'm not a very swinging piano player, but the difference between swung and straight eighths is in straight eighth notes, those are all same length. Whereas in swung eighths, some of the notes are held for a little bit longer and some of them are then shortened in order to end up in the same place at the same time. So instead of a very even dot 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 dot, we have that takes the same amount of time, but you can hear this first note is longer and then the second note has to be shorter in order to get here by 2. 1 and 2 or 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and versus 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So swung eighth notes is step number 1 to sounding like you're playing bebop. But you can imagine if that's all you're doing. It's going to get pretty old after a while. The cool thing about bebop as it evolved, as people sort of reverse engineered Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, is there are some tricks that you can learn to basically have a line that you want to play and make it more rhythmically interesting. So let's just stick with this line that I've been playing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So I start here 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I want to end here after my 4 and I can play that all as eighths, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or there are 2 common things that happen in bebop all the time where you can make some variations. The first is called the 16th note turn, and I don't hear a lot of this on Horace Silver Trio, but it sounds like this. So that's the 16th note turn. The way this works is you take your note, you go up 1 note, you go back to the original note, and then you go down like you normally would, but you do those twice as fast. And then you keep going. You don't have to do it on a 1. You can do it on a 3. Let's say 1 and 2. Sorry, 1 and 2 and... or on the 2. Again, I don't hear that in too many places on Horace Silver Trio. So my favorite one is actually apparently Horace Silver's favorite one too, because this one's all over the place. Instead of just playing swung eighths all in a row all the time, there's a way to put some breathing space in there and play something that sounds more like this. So there was a break in there. The way this works rhythmically is we're going to take a beat and we're going to not play anything on there. So I'll just start from up here. So instead of going 1 and 2, I'm going to go nothing on 1. 1, and then I'm going to play that on the and. So now I'm already 1 note behind. The way I'm going to get caught up is I'm going to play 3 notes in the space of the next 2 notes, and this is called a triplet. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4 notes, I'm going to go nothing, 1, and then the next 3 notes pretty quickly. 1. So that is the same notes, and I end up here at the end of it just the same way. Both of these start here and end here. One has a really fluid sound. The other one has a much more kind of jerky sound. Sorry. So that little pause, the little hiccup, and followed by the triplet thrown in there is all over Horace Silver Trio. Maybe the easiest way to listen for this is just to try to hear when there's a break. So when you have that little hiccup, anytime there's a pause and then it seems to speed up for just a second. 1. So try to, I'll find some specific clips where that's happening in a pretty obtrusive way, and then the more you listen for it, you'll hear it all over the place. But to bring this to a somewhat succinct close, some of the things that make bebop feel like bebop, where you can hear it as being distinct from post-bop or modal jazz, is really this predominantly 8th note playing, swung eighths, and long passages of this. But you can also break up the rhythm using either the 16th note turn or this rest triplet figure. So that type of deal. I hope this helps. And in the next video, I have a little more detail of an extra thing that goes into bebop that I think, to my ear at least, was one of the inspirations for the figure in Safari.